Issue 8. The issue starts out with the crab meat being caught with Sonic comic book. So, as I guessed earlier, it looks like Foiled again was canon after all. The Freedom Fighters really do make fictional comics about Sonic to boost morale. Sure is a miracle that they're able to get all the necessary materials for making these comics and they're hiding from Eggman fugitive lifestyle, where it's a wonder that they can even get the basic necessities, but whatever. It's a fascinating concept nonetheless. And again, this brings me back to my point last issue about crab meats being more sentient than SWAT bots, because this one has enough life in it to want to read Sonic comics. Naturally it gets in trouble. So, no reading is a rule? Okay, what if a robot needs to be able to read to follow orders? Sure, he could only mean no reading comics or like fictional media, but then just say that. And the sadistic SWAT bot says that he loves seeing bad robots being punished. It makes sense that he's programmed to be like that, since that's probably part of his job, so he has to be programmed to love that, or else he'd be disgruntled. The crab meat lies that he did it for him, saying that he thought, what if Eggman had superpowered robots? And this gives Eggman an idea, and he uses both of the robots as spare parts to achieve this goal. Eggman's making a speech until Sonic comes in, refusing to let him destroy the woods and build a toxic dump. Eggman rips off the bat signal and a weird-looking superhero robot flies in and attacks Sonic comically. See, this is the kind of comedy I think belongs in the Sonic series. Action, slapstick, and stuff. I still didn't laugh, but it doesn't feel out of place. Is this robot incapable of being spin dashed through? Is it gifted with fast enough reaction times to be able to always attack Sonic before it can handle it? Seems arbitrary that it's always able to attack Sonic. Finally, Sonic gets the idea to try a Sonic spin, jumping up from the ground, spinning around. Finally, they use the right term, only for him to get knocked down. Apparently, the other Freedom Fighters were watching from a distance and get all worried that he's been beaten, only for Sonic to immediately reveal the next part of the story, for the second time, that he was actually playing possum, and that he took apart the robot faster than he could see, in a blatant anticlimactic Deus Ex Machina. I guess he was just lying down to mess with him, both times, even though he could have been finished off while he was lying down. The rest of the story is Eggman using the Crab Meats comics as inspiration for creating more wacky robots and sending them after Sonic. At least Sonic says that could mean trouble at first, getting invested in the story by him taking his situation seriously rather than being bored and detached, assuming he's gonna win like in Colors. Due to an atrocious and arbitrary miscommunications glitch, they somehow thought he meant to make a Steve Urkel robot instead of a Wolverine robot. Somehow. I kinda like how Sonic comments that his voice sounds familiar, because Steve Urkel was a character that Jaleel White, the voice actor of Sonic back then, also played. So Steve Urkel exists in the Sonic universe? His show exists? Again, pop culture references are just out of place in the Sonic series. It's supposed to be more removed from reality. It's like a fantasy series. Sadly, the comic explains the joke instantly with a text box right below it, destroying the point. Why have a joke if you're gonna immediately explain it because you think that kids won't get it? Like, not even Sonic Colors literally had a text box explaining the joke right after they made it. Sonic stops the giant lawnmower from destroying the Great Forest by pulling the plug on it and pushing it off the convenient cliff. At least he acknowledges how convenient this is. And at least we get to save some space in the comic by skipping over Sonic defeating all the Superbots in a predictable fashion. I understand why Eggman saying mercy would make him think that he was speaking French, since Sonic probably hears Antoine saying mercy when he's thanking his friends. Wait, since when does Antoine thank anyone at this point in the comic? That requires him to not be arrogant and stuff. That requires at least a little humility. Besides, Sonic was caught up in the moment and wasn't expecting Eggman to say mercy like that. Of course, at the end, Sonic slips on oil as a consequence of being around the destroyed robots, and he comments on how, just like in most superhero comics, the villain always gets away in the end. The story was basically a superhero comic homage. It didn't have a real point to it. It was just some harmless fun. It's like junk food. It's shallow, but it's still enjoyable, although only in bits. If every issue was this pointless and simple and predictable, I'd get bored fast. Most of all, I just like the fact that they brought in the concept of Sonic comics existing in universe from an earlier short story and actually used it as a plot. And now we have the real story of the issue. Sonic spending more quality time with Tails by using his super speed to show off again. Does he spend every bonding moment with Tails like this? I'm shocked that Tails hasn't gotten bored of his super speed by now and stopped being impressed by his antics. Sonic had played a note on the guitar and raced down the hill before it would reach Tails' ears, so he's faster than sound on his own. Once again. Whatever. Still, I hope he does normal stuff with Tails too, because otherwise this makes him look self-obsessed. Like he cares more about flaunting his super speed for the umpteenth time than genuinely hanging out with Tails. I'd have less of a problem with this if it was established that Tails asked him to do this kind of stuff to test how fast he is, and he was just impressing his little brother for fun. But even then, shouldn't everyone stop being interested in how fast he is by now? They know Sonic for how long? And like, I know Sonic's arrogant and like prideful, but you think even he would be bored of showing off with his super speed by now? I mean, how long has he had it? He's acting like he just got it. And now it's revealed that the rest of the Freedom Fighters were there all along. And Sally complains about how Eggman banned all music for no reason, something that was mentioned earlier in the comic. Seriously, this makes no sense. No actual person would ban music. Only a straw man existing only to be puppeted as an antagonist for the writers. You'd think he'd at least have it so that there's music that glorifies himself. I mean, I bet even North Korea has that. I can imagine music like that existing in his empire and being the only kind allowed. But none at all? This is past the point of believability. And there isn't even an explanation for it. What, did Eggman have a really harsh music teacher growing up? Did his parents play the radio way too loud in the car? I find this to be pretty charming, them all being together as friends. Why did Antoine sing in laws instead of trying to sing an actual sentence? Or at least singing the Do-Re-Mi song? I guess that wouldn't have fit in his tiny text bubble. The whole reason he was written to do this was for the sake of a joke about him being unable to sing. He's purely the annoying character at this point in the comic. It seems like he's not allowed to be there for anything else. You're not allowed to like him or anything. So Rotor asks Sonic to play music for them because apparently Sonic knows how to play the guitar in the comic universe. Well, that's pretty nice. Adds more to his character. Somehow, Eggman hears the music from all the way over there, and somehow only one of the notes at that, and goes into a rage. Seriously, it's impossible for any person to hate music. That's not how our brains work. They're naturally inclined to like it. Even cavemen loved music, even if it was just tribal drumming. Even pop music is scientifically engineered to make our brains relish it. Its skill in rhythms and stuff. The one thing it does right. Why did Snively even think that Robotnik was singing anyways? It's just there for the sake of a joke. At least we finally get to see Snively being used. Well, maybe he was first appearing in the Supersonic special comic that I haven't seen yet. I'll get to it, like before issue 14. And we cut back to the Freedom Fighters. I'm impressed that they actually bothered to give an explanation for where Sonic found that guitar instead of us having to assume he always had it. He found it in an abandoned concert hall that Eggman hasn't destroyed a long time ago for some reason. There's plenty of instruments in there that haven't been wrecked yet for some reason. So Sonic leads all of his friends to the concert hall after Bunny makes a pun that makes her more endearing because it adds more to her character, by making her a person who's proud of her appearance. So the girl with super strength is the girly one of the group. I at least like that Bunny is here, maybe she'll be useful. Spoiler alert, she isn't any more useful than the rest of Sonic's friends, but at least she's here finally. So Eggman turns all the Freedom Fighters with Sonic tiny, and starts chasing them with a giant vacuum. Well, Eggman does plenty of crazy things, so it's not really out of character. Sonic cuts a hole in something to make a bunch of concert papers clog up Eggman's vacuum. Sonic lures Eggman to him, and then is led into crashing so that his mobile robot maker is destroyed. But he still has a handheld robot maker. A freaking handheld robot maker. Yeah, that's not overpowered or ridiculous at all. And then the other freedom fighters fling projectiles at him using the violin string. This is overall a really creative premise and fight scene. At least to me anyways. Although, it looks like the only way that they are taking advantage of the instruments being around is just this one thing. For the most part, Sonic's defeating him the way that he would have anyways, even if he wasn't shrunken. Making him crash into stuff. Of course, the freedom fighters all grow back, because as mentioned slightly before, the effect only lasts 1 hour. I have trouble believing an hour has passed already. It's good that this was mentioned before instead of coming out of nowhere. I mean, I guess you have to have some sort of balance to the overpowered ability of shrinking objects whenever you want to with magic. Yeah, I'm calling it magic because this is not technology. Come on, this is magic. He must have used some sort of Chaos Emerald shards to make this happen or something. And as you'd expect for an entire episode dedicated to Eggman's hatred of music, Sonic plays music as a Chekhov's gun with his friends to scare him away. Because apparently all of his friends already knew how to play those instruments. That was convenient. And the episode ends with Eggman being tortured by a whole bunch of tiny buzz bombers playing music at him. Because Rotor was able to shrink them with his device off screen and reprogram them to do that. I always really love it when Rotor uses Eggman's own devices against them, or reprograms his own machine to sabotage him. So as a whole, I think I enjoyed this issue. A lot more than the previous one anyways. The first story was pointless, but it was harmless fun. And the second story was pretty enjoyable too, even if it had a lot of plot holes and they never bothered to explain the entire premise of the story. Seriously, just one sentence from Eggman would be all that it would have taken to justify his hatred of music. And you know, I can understand him banning music just to spite people while listening to it in his spare time, because he wants to have it all for himself. But an actual human being hating music in general? Bullshit. That is not how the brain works. It may be that he just has really specific weird taste in music and just hasn't found the right type of music that he likes yet. But by hating all music, aside from that, that's still really hard to believe. I'd rather have Eggman as a believable character than as merely a puppet meant to arbitrarily do and hate things just because he's the villain, basically being the definition of immersion breaking. He doesn't have to be this way just to be a threat. He can be a threat with the heroes being the underdogs and still have a believable personality. This story was written by Mike Gallagher. Mike Gallagher. And as I've heard is typical for him, it's harmless, light-hearted fun. And best yet, it's not forced to be lighthearted by being jam-packed with out-of-place jokes. At least not most of the time. Instead, the situations themselves are genuinely lighthearted, and the characters are reacting realistically in their natural, fun-loving ways. This is how you do comedy right. I didn't laugh once, but it's charming. That's an excellent thing for a Sonic story to be. Sometimes that's all you really need.